Hey guys, Rob here at 3D Printscape. A couple weeks ago I did a video on setting up a new fan duct cover for your Ender 3 if you're not running the BLTouch unit. Now that video did not cover setting it up with the BLTouch because, well, here's the actual fan duct. As you can see, it doesn't have the mount on it, and if you try to put the BLTouch unit next to it, which we'll go over in a couple minutes, it won't actually mount here. This is blocking it. So I went ahead and printed out two of them. I'll show them to you really quick first. This one we're not going to use. I just wanted to show it as an example. This is one that you would use if you wanted to upgrade the fan, which we did not want to do, at least I did not want to do right now, but I wanted to show you what it looked like if you did decide to put an upgraded fan on it. You'd want to go with this one. I will link to all of these in the description below, along with the video I did last week as well. And here's the one that we're going to be using today. It's similar to the other ones. It works with your stock fans. It has a mount on the side for the BLTouch unit, and we also have the actual offsets, which we'll have to update here towards the end of the video. I'll show you what to actually set them to. Fortunately, they did provide them as part of the information on Thingiverse, so that helped out a lot. We didn't actually have to take the measurements. Now you will have to print out this plus a spacer, which I've got right here. I'll show it to you in a minute when we actually go to put it on. And you will also need to get two longer screws to be able to attach this. So you're going to need, well, actually, I guess bolts. These two here I had laying around. They are 2.75 mil by 14 mil. I will add a link to the description below for a set of them if you're looking for the ones that I'm using, or just a good set to keep around the house. They're not that expensive, but you will need the longer bolts here. So just keep that in mind when you're going to do the upgrade, that you want to make sure you have it before you start taking things apart, unless you probably won't be too happy. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the install process. I'll show you what all has to be done. Again, this is assuming you already have the BLTouch unit already set up. I'll add a link in the description to that install video if you don't. Or if you have any questions on the process, like always, go ahead and leave a comment below, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Once we get through the actual physical install process, I'll quickly show you the settings I use to print this in Cura. Plus, I'll show you how to update the firmware again for the offsets that we have to adjust, because, well, I have to change the camera here, but this, where the BLTouch unit actually connects, is slightly more to my right than it would be with the standard mount, so we have to account for that in the programming. I guess if you're not really printing anything that's going to be utilizing most of the space, you could just leave it how it is, but it will change your home and it will affect your overall print area, because that won't be correct. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, I went ahead and zoomed in on the printer where we're going to be working. Before we get started, let's take a minute to talk about the tools we're going to need. We're going to need two Allen wrenches. They should have both came with the printer, but if you misplaced them like I did for one of them, you're going to need a 1.5 and a 2 mil. So this is the 2 mil, which I still had from what came with the printer, and then I just have a Allen wrench set here that had the 1.5, which we're going to need for some of these side bolts. Now, again, I wanted to show you this a little bit closer. When you put this next to the actual extruder here, you can see that this mount is over a little bit more than here. That's why we have to make that adjustment. I believe on this setup it's only a 6 millimeter difference, but if we're going to be doing it, I'd rather do it right to begin with. Also, I want to make a note that I did print this with PLA. I would probably recommend you using PETG filament just because it has a higher temperature rating, but I wanted to run with PLA because I think it'll be fine, and that's what I had laying around. The reason why I think it's going to be fine is because if you look here, the actual hot end, or the block, is going to be in the middle here, so it's not going to be anywhere near the actual PLA. So I think it'll be fine. I've ran it before without the BLTouch unit, so I guess I ran this one the same way. This is PLA as well, with no issues, and I know a couple of you guys have also printed the other one with PLA with no issues at all. But again, the recommendation is PETG, so if you have that, I would go ahead and print with it. I might switch out later, I may not. I'm kind of the opinion if it's not broken, don't fix it. So assuming I have no issues with this, I probably won't switch it out. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Like I mentioned, we're going to need that spacer, the extra long, or the longer bolts here. Here's that spacer, just a little guy here. It's going to sit here, kind of lower the BLTouch unit. And then first thing we're going to want to do is take off these fans. We can either do that now or we can take it off right after we take this piece off, but I'm just going to knock that out. And then we want to take the extruder cover off here, and then we're going to want to take the BLTouch unit off of the extruder as well, or off of that bracket. So let's go ahead and get started. I will Alright, so I went ahead and grabbed my magnetic plate to put the screws in. I changed what I was doing here for a second. I was going to start with these screws, but I forgot it's kind of a pain to get in there with this tool, so I figured I'd get this stuff out of the way first. We are going to want to take the mounting bracket off of the BLTouch unit, so I'll go ahead and do that now. Alright, now that that's off, let's go and set this off to the side here, and we'll go ahead and take off the screws for this fan and the screws for the inside fan here as well. Now make a note that the labels are on the inside, because that's going to affect the airflow. If you have it flipped, you're going to be sending the air in the wrong direction. So this one is a 2mm here, the one on the outside is the 1.5. Alright, now I got those screws out, so if you can't just pull out the fan, I'm just going to go from this side and kind of just push on the blades a little bit to pop it down. Just make it easier to pull out here. Alright, so just a real quick update here. What's happening? The reason why I was struggling with the fan, this screw is kind of blocking one of the areas where the cable is going in. So I'm going to go ahead and take these out really quick just to make it easier. Alright, so I got those screws out and both of the fans out here. Just wanted to make a note. Be careful when working around these cables. You don't want to move this one too much. You don't want to potentially mess up the connection between it and the heat block and have issues. This is the default fan duct. It just basically bolts on here along with the unit and just pushes the air down. It kind of directs it towards the extruder or the hot end, but as you can see, it can only do so much at that little bit of a lip, and it's pushing it from the side all the way to it, so you're not getting close. Now if you had a larger fan or more airflow, that might be okay, but it's also metal here, where obviously this is going to be a plastic material, depending on if you go with PLA or PETG, but it's going to be a lot quieter as well, which is a benefit that probably isn't talked about too much, but it definitely is quieter. Alright, so now what we want to do is we want to mount our fans on the side, our BLTouch unit here, and then we'll put it back together. So we'll go ahead and start with the side fan, because tends to be the most difficult. We might have to bore some of these holes out if you haven't done a dry fit or anything at all. So first thing I'm going to do there is I'm going to take one of the screws that we're going to be using here, make sure I can actually get it started on each one of them before trying to put the fan in, because if we don't do that and there are issues, it's just going to be annoying to work around. So just take the extra minute and go ahead and do that. I'm going to do that now, so I'll speed up the video. Alright, so I went ahead and got these 4 started. I'm going to take them back out here in a couple minutes. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing here, set these 4, and make sure I can get my main support ones back through these holes without any issues. I found it easier going this route after doing it a couple times versus just holding the fan in and trying to work around. Mainly because it's, depending upon the accuracy of your printer, it might be off just a little bit, so you might have to play around with the screws just to get them started at first. So once you got that in place, you're good to go. But it was just annoying trying to do it with the fan, so just spending the extra minute to make sure everything is good ahead of time, I felt to be worth it. So that's what we're doing here. So I got all of these set. As you can tell from the quick time lapse, that it was kind of a struggle. The 2 main screws that bolt this to the Z-axis piece here, you want to make sure that you bore them out enough that you can get the screws through them, especially this one, because you don't have much to work with. Alright, so what we're going to do is we'll go ahead and mount the fans, and then we'll put this actually on the printer, and then we'll put the BLTouch unit in place. The reason for that is I really don't want to try to work around the BLTouch unit getting these 2 screws in. I think it's going to be a pain. So we'll go ahead and remove these 2 screws here for that. put the fans in place, and then we'll put it up and then put the BLTouch unit in. So let me just go and knock these off really quick. Alright, so I've got the fan screws out. I want to make sure we leave these 2 screws in so I don't have to deal with them again later. We'll go ahead and put the fan in. We'll do the blower fan first. So here you can see at the bottom where it has the opening, that's where all the air is going to be pushed into it. So you want to make sure that's at the bottom here. You can see there where the hole is for the fan duct. So we'll go ahead and set this in place, put these screws in. Alright, fan number 1 is in. Now we'll go ahead and do fan number 2. Again, we want to feed this around, but we want to make sure that the label's on the inside. Alright, those are in. Now I was able to make it work with the standard screws, or the stock screws. If you have longer ones, I would recommend it. It'd make it easier. But as you see, I did get it to work. A bit of a struggle. Now we want to align this here so that the heating element goes into this groove in between it. Alright, so now that we got this in place, I just want to make sure the heat block is not actually touching it, which we're good. And now we want to go ahead and put these 2 screws in. I started with the bottom one here just to get things started so that it stays up there. I just got it in a little bit. Now I'm going to tighten up the top one, then go back to the bottom one, just because this top one is hard to get because of the angle. Though I guess now that I got it started, it wasn't that bad. Alright, those are in. I'm just going to check all my connections here, make sure we're good. Not scraping on anything, which it looks to be good. Then we got plenty of clearance around the heat block there. Alright, so now the BLTouch. I know with the standard mount, a lot of times they have it going this way, which this does have the groove here. So you have a choice. You can either disconnect it and run it through this groove and mount it on that side, or just mount it on this side. I've seen it done both ways. Alright, so the reason why we need this spacer here is because if we pull down the probe piece here, if you do a straight level across, let me get a flat end or a piece of paper, you'll be able to see that it's barely scraping or barely at the bottom, even with the extruder tip. So it means, depending upon how it's set up, it's possible that it might not engage. So adding this small piece here will fix that. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to run these bolts from the bottom, go ahead and connect it in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and push it into, well, if you're using longer bolts, you can push it all the way in place to get the bolts started and then slide this in. That's why that's why it's not closed on the side. But because these bolts are barely long enough, I'm just going to put this in place now so I don't have to worry about it. Oops, sorry, I turned this the wrong way. We want to make sure that the actual cables are on the outside. That's why a lot of people run the cable on, just run it on the outside instead of actually feeding it through, because you will scrape that if it's not. And actually, I do not like this at all. So I take back my original comment. I am going to run this on the outside. Alright, so now we'll go ahead and put this in place. If you can see here, let me get a little bit better angle. There's barely enough clearance, which I should have been paying attention to, for the actual adapter to fit. So it's kind of pushing against it. I didn't want that. You might have been able to make it work, but it's not worth it. Just go ahead and run it off to the side. So we want to get these bolts in place here. I'm going to raise this axis a bit so I can get under it. And really, I don't even need these nuts here. I'm just using them as an extra step or extra precaution. The actual filament is creating a good enough support for it, but it depends on the bolt you're using. Alright, so that's good to go. I'm going to go ahead and grab my power cord really quick, plug this in for you guys, make sure everything powers up like it should, then we'll go jump over to the computer. Alright, we are now plugged in. I'm turning it on now. So let's just go ahead and turn it on and then auto home it. So if we go to prepare. Alright, so we're good to go here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it off. We'll jump over to the computer. I'll show you really quickly the settings I used in Cura. And then we'll go ahead and make the changes to the offset. Go ahead and push that firmware, and then we'll come back and we will set the actual Z offset to make sure that we're good there on the height. I did a whole video on that. I just posted it earlier this week, I believe. So if you want more detail on that part, just go ahead and check out that video. I'll link to it in the description below. So let's go and turn this off and jump over to the computer. Alright guys, we're here at the computer. Here we got the two pieces that I printed. We got the actual fan duct cover and that spacer. I just went with the basic settings, but I wanted to walk through them really quick just to show you. I just chose standard quality, came up with the defaults there, and I changed the infill to 30. Infill pattern I have set to cubic, and I set the bed temperature to 60 just because that's what I typically like to use. And then the other major thing that I did that you're going to want to do, which I mentioned this on the other video as well, for the fan duct cover if you don't have a BLTouch, is you want to use brim support. And here's why. Go ahead and go to preview really quick. When you're printing this without brim, this is going to be its own piece right here. So you've got a piece over here, this piece, and then this piece. As that's building up, it's fine. Once it starts to actually make these connections and it starts to knock things around, every time I've tried to print this with a skirt, it just gets knocked out and it messes up the entire print. So I automatically default to printing things like this with brim. I made that mistake twice with the first one that I printed. So I just want to pass on that little tidbit of knowledge. Alright, so those are all the setting changes that I did here. Like I said, pretty basic, standard quality, 2mm layer height, 30% infill with the cubic infill pattern. And then the only thing I changed was the bed temperature. 200 works fine for the main printing temperature with the filament I'm using, which was Overture. If you have a different filament that doesn't work with that, you will want to make the adjustments there. Alright, so now let's talk about the firmware changes we need to make. I'm going to assume that you've already gone through the install process of setting up the BLTouch unit. If not, check out that video first, because it kind of goes through a lot of this, going over the firmware, how to actually do all that, and then references the video did in setting up the bootloader to begin with and everything there. But you want to go to your configuration.h file. You want to find this section. So if you just, it's easy if you want to just scroll down until you see this giant area where you have your offsets. It kind of stands out in the file, or you can search for probe offset from extruder. Alright, so what I had before was -43 and -7. We need -47 and -8. Now these measurements came from Thingiverse. He had them in the profile, so when you go to download that, you'll see them in there. Alright, so what we'll do is go ahead and save this, and then I have my printer on here, so if we go up to tools and go to port, go ahead and select COM1, then we can go ahead and verify, make sure that everything is good. Alright, now it looks good. Done compiling, everything checked out. You can see down here. So next thing we want to do is go ahead and upload the firmware, which it's going to do the compile again and then push it. So this might take another minute. Alright, so quick troubleshooting 101. As you can see, I ran into an error. It wasn't actually seeing the printer. I had COM1 selected. I just switched the USB ports. I guess it didn't like that one, or that one was acting up. So now it is recognizing it. I can go to COM9 and I'm going to push it again. Yes. So I was having an access denied issue. I believe it's because I had multiple sessions open before, so I went ahead and rebooted. Hopefully that fixes that. Just verifying that it did save my settings, which it did. So now let's just go ahead and verify my port is set to COM8, and let's send it to the printer. Fingers crossed. All right, this looks much more promising. So like I said before, it was just getting access denied. I had multiple instances up before where I was trying to troubleshoot, look at a couple things, and I think I just had a lock on the port. So rebooting freed that. I could have probably cleared the instance just by closing out some things, but it's been a little bit since I rebooted, so I just went that route. All right, so now you can see here that it successfully sent that over to the printer. Next step is going to be setting our Z probe offset, which won't take very long. I'm going to go through that pretty quickly in this video. If you have any questions, you can check out the video I did on that one. I go into it in much more detail. Alright guys, now that we got the firmware uploaded, let's go ahead and run through setting up our Z offset. Like I said, I did a complete video on this going into it in more detail, so I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I do want to make sure I have it set right. So go ahead and auto home. Alright, let's go ahead and lower the Z axis until we get it even with our cardstock or whatever paper you're using. So move axis, move Z by 0.1. It's currently at 5, which is where it's at by default. I think we'll be around -3, so I'm going to go ahead and drop down to 0 really quick and then keep going down from there. Alright. Okay, that changed quite a bit. So I was at -3 before. Now it looks like we're at about... So it's -3.275. Now at negative like 0.8. Yeah, I'll go with 0.8. So we'll go ahead and raise this back up to 0. A little bit higher. And then we will go to our Z offset section. So we'll go back to main, go to control, and go to motion, and probe Z offset, and we want to do -0.8. Again, I'm going through this fast here for the sake of time. I know this is already kind of a longer video. I go through this in a lot more detail in the video I did specifically on this. So I'll link to that in the description below. Alright, so that looks good there. So we're at 0.8. So then we'll just go back to control, go to store settings, and we are good to go. That's all there is to it. Alright guys, so that's the process to set up this fan duct mod if you're using a BLTouch unit. There is a bit more to it, just because you got to account for the offsets in the BLTouch unit, but it's still not difficult. If you have any questions, go and leave a comment below. One thing I would like to mention, I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning of the video, is that even if you don't have a BLTouch unit now and you're thinking about getting one in the future, I would go ahead and print this fan duct just so you already have everything in case you want to add it in. Then you don't have to worry about ripping it all apart and reprinting it and then putting a new one back in. So just something to think about. Make sure you guys hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks.